Good evening, everyone. A warm welcome to all of you this lovely Sunday evening. Occupational therapy. Yes, it's a branch of healthcare that helps people of all ages who have physical, sensory, or cognitive problems. OT can help them regain independence in areas of their lives. Occupational therapists help with barriers that affect a person's emotional, social, and physical needs. To do this, they use everyday activities, exercises, and other therapies. Today, we have with us Navaz Taraporevala and Dr. Isha Soni to enlighten us on this subject. Our first speaker today is Dr. Isha Soni. She's a senior occupational therapist and co-founder of the Lexicon Rainbow School, a support school for children with special needs in Pune. She's a certified sensory integration therapist from the University of Southern California, USA, and a bachelor's of occupational therapy from SET GS Medical College and KEM Hospital, Mumbai, India. She was also the head of Department of Behavioral Sciences and Mental Health, a multidisciplinary team at Sayadri Super Speciality Hospitals for 10 years. She has been in this field for more than 12 years. Warm welcome to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Karen. Thank you for your kind words. And good evening to all the parents. So, yes, today we are going to talk about occupational therapy, what is OT, and why is it important. So, our topic today being the importance of therapies. So, I'll just take all of you through a short slideshow. I'm just sharing my screen. So, as Karen rightly said, the OT practitioners, we help people of all ages to live, learn, work, and play. So, I love to describe OT as function. Occupational therapy is function, and we make sure that we have the fun in function. So, it's a healthcare profession that deals with people across the lifespan. And I would like to emphasize by what do we mean by occupation and occupational therapy. So occupation is basically the activities that we want to do and we need to do, and it varies across the lifespan. For example, for a child, the occupation is play. As a child grows older, it's that of a student. And for adults, it's work. For senior citizens, it's more of leisure. There are various fields in which an occupational therapist works. So it's neurology, orthopedics, plastic surgery, oncology. We work in various fields. But today we are going to talk mainly about occupational therapy for children, that is the pediatric OT. So we work with different developmental conditions such as the autism spectrum disorder, ADHD, learning difficulties, cerebral palsy, Down syndrome, and other genetic conditions. An occupational therapist also works in different settings. To begin with, we work in NICU, that is the neonatal intensive care unit. So, what is the role of OT in an ICU? We help in the positioning of the infant, the premature baby. We help in the feeding, reducing sensory overstimulation in an ICU. There are a lot of lights, sounds. So we as OTs, we work closely with the doctor and the entire team to reduce the sensory overstimulation that an infant has. And we also work in promoting the reflex development in children. Then we also work in hospital settings like acute care conditions, like neurology. Maybe if a child has had a stroke and there is a hemiplegia, or in cancer conditions like oncology conditions, orthopedic conditions. So like if a child has had a fracture, so we help the child in this acute care settings in the hospital settings to promote function and manage the daily activities of living. In a school, the school-based OT, we OTs are also working very closely in school with the entire team in coordination with the teachers, special educators, parents to help develop fine motor skills, gross motor skills, attention span issues, handwriting, visual perception, and motor issues. In the school, an OT might just work as a consultant, just paying a visit, or an OT would also be a part of the school, like the OT would be there on a day-to-day basis in the school. In the clinical settings, we work with children wherein they come on weekly basis again for conditions like handwriting issues or attention span issues and the other conditions that we spoke prior. And OT also works in home-based settings like to help with home modifications with and within the natural environment of the child. So what are the goals of pediatric OT? So primarily, an OT works in developing and improving the gross motor skills of the child. So as we told, if there is an infant um, who's born premature, or if there is any other form of developmental delay, the child may not attain his or her motor skills on time. So an occupational therapist helps to um, helps for the child to attain these gross motor skills like sitting, crawling, walking, jumping, etc. We also help to develop fine motor skills in children. So, what are basically fine motor skills? It is the use of small muscles of the hand, which helps us to do finer hand movements like lacing, buttoning, holding a pencil, scooping with a spoon, using a fork, tying shoelaces, etc. A very important goal of an OT is working towards independence in activities of daily living. So that's like eating, dressing, bathing, etc. There are various methods used like backward chaining method. So wherein just to work at the motivation level of the child just begins doing the last step first. And that is how a child is motivated. The child feels confident about himself and is motivated to complete his daily task. A very important area where an OT also works is sensory processing difficulties. So we all are aware about what are sensory issues. We know hypersensitivity, hyposensitivity. So this is a very broad field, and an occupational therapist helps in dealing with sensory processing issues with children. We also work towards improving the visual motor integration skills like copying from a board or reading, writing, working towards eye-hand coordination, handwriting difficulties. It's also very important for a child to have age-appropriate play. So OT again works very intensely with the child when it comes to developing the play skills of a child. Now, a very important question that many parents have is, how do I know that my child needs OT? So there are many parents who are very vigilant, who do milestone mapping right from the time the child is got home from the hospital. So if the parent sees that there is a delay over there, or many times a child might have a diagnosis right at age of 1.5 months, 2 months in case of genetic syndromes like Down syndrome, or in case a child has had a seizure in the early days, or if a child has cerebral palsy. So the doctor and the parents, they both know that yes, the child is at high risk for having a developmental delay. So you are definitely referred to an occupational therapy center. Many times, also how it works is a parent first visits a pediatrician who is later diverted to a developmental pediatrician or a child psychiatrist. Um, these days, a lot of us stay in nuclear families. So what happens is it's the first child for many of them, and parents really don't come to know that whether the child is attaining the milestones um, on time. So, and school, the preschool is the first place where the child is gone out of his house. So it is the time when the teachers or the counselors, they note that, yeah, this child is a little different, or there's something amiss in the child, and the teachers or counselors ask the parents to take help. We also get referrals from schools for attention span issues or sensory issues. And many times, in case the child has an orthopedic condition like cerebral palsy or things like that, so then the child needs occupational therapy. Now we will talk about early intervention. So, how early, like what do we mean by early intervention, and how early should we seek it? So basically, early intervention is the support and services that a child receives. Now, how early should we start? So I would suggest that we start as soon as we suspect any form of delays, because many times to achieve a formal diagnosis, it takes a long time. There is a series of tests that have been done. It's difficult to get appointments for a doctor. And again, 2 to 3 months go away in that. So I always feel that, we should not run behind the diagnosis, but rather we should try to bridge the gap between the child's chronological age and the developmental age. So by chronological age, I mean at what age the child is. So for example, the child is 3 years old, but developmentally, if the child is just 1.5 years old, the diagnosis is secondary, because the therapies is all about mapping, bridging the gap between the two. Now why early intervention? Why do we emphasize on early intervention? It's because of neuroplasticity. So neuroplasticity is the ability of brain to reorganize and the neural networks that are there. So it's like rewiring the brain. Also, if we don't do early intervention or if we don't seek help early, the behavior problems might turn into a habit for the child. Also, what happens many times is, uh, uh, the early intervention will basically help to change the developmental path of the child and lead to better outcomes. It also prepares the child for group setting, and often children learn by imitation and engaging themselves. But with children on the spectrum, what happens is that they are more engaged with objects or with repetitive patterns. So, in that case, by early intervention, it helps to break down these repetitive patterns, new skill, helps to develop the new skills and generalize it. And this enables a smooth transition in the peer group. So, basically, if we start early intervention at age, say, 14 months, 16 months, 2 years, the child is better prepared for formal schooling at age 5 years rather than we starting at 5 years of age with the child. Will early intervention work? So many parents have this question that, oh, my child is so small, my child is just a year old, or, my child is just 1.5 years old. Will it be too stressful for a child to receive so many therapies? So here, I would say we have to outweigh the benefits versus the concern of whether it will be a lot of stress for my child. Always go ahead with evidence-based research and practice. When we are in this situation, when any parent is in this situation of, the child is having any form of developmental delay, a parent tries to do everything for the child. But we would strongly recommend that we go ahead only with evidence-based practices like occupational therapy, physiotherapy, speech and language therapy, and ABA therapy. The early now, how will the child cooperate, or will the child like going to therapies? So ideally, a therapy session should be fun for the child. It should be child-led. The therapist should help to build a good rapport. The therapist should have a good rapport with the child, form that trust with the child. It should be a happy experience for the child. We should give child his or her own space. We should not rush into um, developing the goals or the milestones. We have to give the child his or her space to be comfortable, and then we can work um, towards attaining the milestones. In cases where there is spasticity or tightness, such as in cerebral palsy conditions, we have to respect the pain of the child. And again, consistency is the key. So, many times it happens that the first 2 3 sessions, the child cries a lot, and we as parents feel, oh, I think this is really not working, but we should not stop there. We should be consistent, and eventually the child will settle down. It also happens many times with children who are on the autism spectrum. So, they find the new situation, the new person very stressful. It causes them anxiety, and they want to escape the situation as soon as possible. But consistency is the key over here. Um, Now, many times parents ask that, when the doctor said that there is no cure for autism, then why should we take therapy? What is the point in taking therapy if there is no cure for it? So, it the therapies basically help to improve the quality of life of the child, and it helps for the child to become an independent teenager and an adult. It again, as I said before, it helps to change the developmental part of the child. We can attain the maximum potential of the child by doing therapies. And if there is no intervention, there will be further deterioration in the child if the condition is medically progressive, and the behaviors become more stronger. Also, what happens is, at some point of time, when the child is growing, mostly the parents encounter that at age 6 and 7, they start feeling that the child has started overpowering them physically. Now, when the child was small, they could control the child, they could physically handle the child. But when the child starts growing up, it is beyond the parents' control to physically calm down the child, or stop the child from doing something dangerous, that is compromising the safety of the child. It also helps. So, in therapy, we also have social skills training. So, the social skills training basically helps the child to become more comfortable in the social settings. It helps the child to know and understand the socially appropriate and inappropriate practice. And these can be practiced in the therapy sessions. We can use social stories, we can set clear expectations for the child. Also, it helps in making the child independent. We always want that a child should be independent in as the child becomes a teen or an adolescent and an adult. We as parents always feel that he should at least learn to do his own work. It's also important, the therapies also help to develop leisure skills, wherein uh, leisure skills are again important for the child to develop, because engaging the child is good for the child, rather than being busy in certain repetitive patterns. Leisure skills is a very important part of whether typical or a atypical child. Then the therapies also teaches a child about personal safety and other life skills. Also, we have spoken, I would like to throw some light about online therapy during the pandemic. So, online therapy has both the pros and cons, and it helps the parent and the child to be connected with the therapist. It allows for the mapping of the child, of the progress of the child, and we didn't know, and we still don't know, how when the situation will end. So rather than waiting for the situation to end, many parents actually chose to take help of online therapy and still stay connected with their therapist, and uh, allow the child to progress and not the pandemic being affecting the child's progress. The online How the online therapy sessions worked. So basically, the parent was the facilitator for the child. Also, the parents had more time to work with the child. And many times, what happens in our daily routines, we are busy. We as parents have our own routines. The child goes to school, down to play. But then, right now in the pandemic, we all were, confined to our homes. So even the parents could see the actual issues of the child, and maybe that was a kind of motivation for the parent to work with the child. Also, it gave more time to the parents to work with them. Um, Again, many of the children during this time have helped, they have worked on life skills. So more than the academics, many children who have developmental challenges, it helped to develop the life skills for them. Um, and online therapy, one more very big positive of an online therapy is, you could take therapy from the best of the therapists. The place was not an issue. You could take therapies from the best therapists within the city, country, or across the globe. Also, we had a lot of international, out of India parents get in touch with us for the very reason of dialect. So, those who are based out of India, they always used to face this issue of maybe my child doesn't follow English or the child doesn't follow the accent over here. And so they preferred Indian therapists. And online therapy earlier, before we were hit by the pandemic, was not much spoken about, or it was not considered to take online therapy. But now, online therapy is probably the way ahead. It has helped both the therapist and the parents to think out of the box and help the child. Now, what are the cons of an online therapy? Um, I personally feel that it's in cases like cerebral palsy or other neurodevelopmental conditions where we need to use the NDT method for the child. It was difficult for the therapist to tell the parent where exactly to hold the child, or we say that there are certain key points which we have to facilitate during the therapy. So that was a major negative. Also, many times what happens is the child doesn't cooperate with the parent for therapy. A child usually is more than happy with the therapist, also because the child knows that yeah, she is my therapist and she is going to do ABCD. I have to listen to her. So that's the approach. With the parent, many times the child don't cooperate. Also, the equipments and infrastructures, for example, in sensory integration therapy, we have an entire equipment and we need that setting to um, implement sensory integration therapy for the children. So, yes, that couldn't be done. And online, we could just use sensory strategies for children to help with their sensory issues. But I would say one should definitely go ahead with the online therapies versus waiting for the situation to end. Many parents often ask that, if we don't take therapy, will the children outgrow their issues? The answer is no. Um, children don't outgrow it. If a child is having a developmental issue, there is an organicity present. By organicity, I mean that there is uh, there is something wrong or amiss in the brain of the child, and that's the reason the child is showing the developmental delay. And one should often seek therapies. They never outgrow their issues. I will quickly run through the issues that we come across in teens and adolescents for special needs children. So, handling puberty, emotional changes due to hormones, menstruation in girls, personal safety, independence in ADL, vocational training, and leisure. These are all the areas that we address in teens and adolescents. If we take the right therapy, we can help in dealing with these issues. Also, the other approaches and methods that are used for teens and adolescents are social skills training. It helps a child to learn about non-verbal cues like eye contact, body language, tone of voice, facial expressions, taking and understanding other people's perspective, understanding social and emotional rules. There are programs like Peers, which means the Program for the Education and Enrichment of Relational Skills. It's an evidence-based social skills training program, and how to start a conversation, be a part of group, how to make friends, handling conflict. All this is covered in the Peers program. Another method that can be done is cognitive behavior therapy. It's a form of psychotherapy that helps to change the unhelpful ways of thinking, behaving, and feeling. And it also helps to improve the quality of life. Other approaches that are used are the social thinking program by Michelle Garcia. It helps in perspective taking, social cognition, learning expected and unexpected behavior, and it helps to teach certain strategies like whole body listening, thinking with eyes, body being a part of group are few of the methods. It's very important for vocational training also. So vocational training is also a part of the therapies where it helps in focusing on skill development for a particular task, job, function, or trade. Few examples of vocations are baking, ceramic work, candle making, packaging, paperwork, card making, pen stands, table mats. And it basically helps an individual towards productive living, builds self-esteem and sense of independence. I'll just touch upon cerebral palsy. The issues that we come across in a child who has CP are seizures, speech and communication issues, physical issues, learning problems, feeding issues. So medications and therapies both are helpful in dealing with the above mentioned issues. There is a lot that can be done by feeding therapy. Also, a therapist will help you in the use of assistive devices, braces, and wheelchair training, and dealing with intellectual difficulties and remedial education. When to stop therapy? We should never stop a therapy abruptly. Once we feel, or once the therapist tells you that our 80% of the goals have been achieved, we reduce the frequency of the therapy sessions. And so if the child was seeing a therapist twice a week, we reduce it to once a week. Then gradually we go to once in 15 days, then once in a month. Then we follow up on home programs. And then later on, as the child grows up, we transition the child to socially and age appropriate activities versus coming for going to a therapist. A clinician can see things or scope of improvement which a layman cannot. So it's extremely essential that you take the opinion of your therapist before stopping the therapy. And I would just like to end my presentation by this quote. It's time we take our focus of disabilities and place it on capabilities so we can see the person first. I always tell all my parents to see your child first and then the condition your child may have. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. That was a lot of information. Thank you so much
Yes,
for the lovely presentation and a lot of time to put in it too. Our next
my
speaker, we
pleasure.
have Navaz Tarapur. Thank you, ma'am. Our next speaker, we have Navaz Taraporevala, graduated from Government Medical College, Nagpur University in Occupational Therapy, Masters in Developmental Disabilities in New York University, worked in the US since 1993 in different settings like school, come hospital, and home care. Worked with children of all ages from 1 to 18 years. Is currently a school-based occupational therapist. She also enjoyed volunteering to develop programs for elementary age children in a charter school. Her job also involves training teachers and aides how to work with children with special needs so that children are successful in participating in educational program at school. First of all, a big thank you for Nawaz for joining us at 4:45 in the morning over there. I am very guilty about it. I still feel guilty for making you join at 4:45 in the morning in front of your screen. But thank you very much. And yes, one additional qualification to Nawaz, she's my childhood friend. Over to you, Nawaz.
Hello, everybody. I see Miss Karen there. Ooh. Hello, moms, and I see a mom. She's lying on her bed. Her feet are up in the air. Sit down. Feet on floor. Eyes on teacher. Hello, everybody. As you can tell, I work with little kids in a school in the US. And so things are fun, and I was having a little fun with you. I thank Dr. Isha for a lovely overview of OT. And now what I'm going to give you is a little bit of a practical side of what it looks like to be in Miss Navaz's session or to be in a school in the US. We have to keep in mind it's not the same everywhere, but I'll give you a little bit of a snapshot and also some of the things that you might be able to do as a parent or somebody as a teacher. Okay, so now what I'm going to go into is a few problems that I might encounter in the school system, and then we'll try to see how to work with these issues. So I'm going to switch cameras and I'm going to go to my other screen. Am I on there, Miss Karen? Okay. So as you saw over here, hello everybody. Yes, I was using my hand muscles. My kids love to play with little balls. We feed them things, yum, 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 things like that. Where might I use something like this? So for example, hello, Miss Karen. Hello, moms and dads. I might use the same movement here. Hello. This facilitates the grasp. I move my hand in different ways. I learn strength. So things have to be fun. A lot of issues that I see in the school-based system are with writing. I might see a child with a different type of grasp. I may simply use an accommodation. I can't hold it anymore in that manner. I have to hold it like this. So simple things like that can be solutions that people can apply in the school system. Sometimes things may look a little different. This might be a sample that I have made, but perhaps of somebody in second grade. And you can see a lot of letter reversals. That's letter Q, G, A, J, S. What might I do over here? I may have to teach a whole new way of writing for this child because obviously looking at something and copying it down doesn't seem to work. So what can I do here? So I might say to the child, this is the child's hand over here. And I might say something like, did you eat breakfast today? And the child might say, yes. What did you eat? I had some poha. Oh, it doesn't look like that. I think you're a little sleepy. Let's wake your hand up. And I might provide a lot of tactile input to the hand. And I say, are you sure you're awake? And the child may say, yes. I said, I think you need a little candy to wake up your hand. Let's try that. Ready? So we may take the same crayon, and letter C is for candy. So let's start. Walk to your hand. Yum, 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 yum. Eat all the candy and come down. So what we used was the direction where I gave a lot of input to the left hand only. I didn't touch the child's right hand. So it gave a focus of where to go to the child. And that's how I might teach a letter. Each letter will have a specific auditory cue. So for example, that was letter C. We can do it for the same way for letter A. Start like a C, go up, come down. That might be letter A. And in the same manner, I might be able to teach this child who has so many letter reversals a way or a different way of learning. All righty. Going back over here. Miss Karen has volunteered to be my volunteer for something, and you can do it at home too. I want to explain a little bit to you about the level of the child and how you might be able to find that out too, along with your children at home. So you at home are going to take a piece of paper, a blank piece of paper, any blank paper, and a marker or a pen. And what I'm going to show you is how we can influence, or how the demands of the school influence your child. Okay, so Miss Karen, you can put your paper down, relax on the table as if you're regularly writing. And I'm going to tell you a bunch of things to write down, and you're just going to write them down. You know your name, Miss Karen, so write it on the paper. We always do that in the school. You cannot forget to write your name on the paper, otherwise your teacher doesn't know who you are. Now I want you to turn the paper at the back after you've finished writing your name. And I'm going to tell you some words to write down. When I'm done, or almost done, I'll give you a little bit of a warning. I'll go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, pencils down, and you got to put your pencil down. Okay, get ready. All right. Auditory discrimination, sensory processing, fine motor skills, body center. Start writing. Don't look at my face. You're in school. You got to write. Write down. Hurry up. Sensory processing, auditory discrimination, fine motor skills, body center, 5, 4, 3. Did you write your name on the paper? You're in school. You don't get credit. Put your pencils down. Now let's see your name, Miss Karen. Wow, she has beautiful writing. Now turn your page around, Miss Karen, and let's see what you did. You need to show the teacher. Looks like she forgot some words. She wasn't paying very good attention, I can see that. And she didn't even write her name. How do you expect your teacher to teach you, Miss Karen? But that was a test, right? So this is what she writes when she's not pressured, or when she's cool and calm. But when you flip the page around, she tricked us. She didn't really do it. She had a second try. But think of your child in the school system. They have to think about spelling, they have to think about punctuation, and they may not even know that subject matter, and they're struggling to get things done. And what happens there is handwriting suffers. So we often get called into the schools and we say, oh, the handwriting of this kid is horrible. This kid can't write. But it's not that necessarily that always. It's also figuring out whether it's too much for the child. So what is the teacher teaching in the class? Is that too much for the kid? You have to adjust the demands versus what the child can do. So we have different things called accommodations, which is trying to match the two and still allow the child to be a part of the classroom. All right. So that was a fun way to look at things. And now another area that we work on is self-care skills in the school system. So I might teach a child how to zip a jacket. And I want to talk about a little technique we are using successfully these days called video modeling. And video modeling, when I talked to Miss Karen about it, she was like, oh, I use it on the computer all the time and the kids still don't get it. It's like I'm showing them on the video. What more do you want me to do? But that's not what I'm talking about. So for example, if I am zipping a jacket, I'm going to stand up here. Suppose I'm wearing a jacket and this is my jacket. I want you to put that camera right here so that you are looking through the eyes of your child and looking down to where the zipper actually is. Because think about it, how many of our children have vision issues? We have to help them zoom in on that spot. Some of our kids are autistic. They learn things in a specific manner. So if you've shown something somewhere else, that might not work, but exactly the scenario that your child is going to encounter, and then teach in that particular manner. So that's called video modeling. So I have a lot of fun with that. I also tape the children. I tape other children doing things and they enjoy it when they see their classmate getting it and then they try to do it as well. So that's been a fun approach. Another way that I might work on it, this is, let's say, for shoelace time. Now, when we put a shoe in front of a kid and we say, okay, tie your shoe, and the parent might go, I'll help you. And you put your hand on top of the child's hand and you might try to show your kid, but that doesn't really do very much for the child. That's more you practicing what to do. The child can't really figure it out. But if you use something like a visual cue, the child knows what a cross is. The child knows the numbers 1 and 2. I'm not sure you can see it, but that's number 1. That's number 2 there. So I might say something like this. Let's take it to number 1. And the child will be able to put the string there independently. So again, it's grading the activity to the level of the child using their strengths. Many autistic children have good visual skills, like they're able to see things, they're able to match things. We're going to use their strengths and teach them what they can do with their strengths. So it might look like that. 1, 2, cross, hold, take it from under, hold, 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 ta-da. Alrighty, so we talked about some self-care skills. We talked about a lot of our fine motor skills. Another area we deal with a lot is, of course, behavior. And there are various approaches to, of course, to dealing with behavior, but just as Dr. Soni talked about, that we do work on sensory processing skills in the school system as well. She talked about the clinician's perspective, that is, what can we do by ourselves with the kid in the clinic or in our OT settings. But we can also help the kid in many ways within the school, with the teacher helping the child or the parent helping the child in a certain way. So for example, if your child has sensitivity to sound. Now, often the teacher might tell me something like this. Every day after recess, he comes, he's cranky, he's irritable, he's crying the whole time. He can't focus after recess. And I sort of asked the teacher what it looks like, what his day is. And she said, I give him breaks. It's just after recess. How much more of a break can I give this kid? And she's right? Break equals recess. But you have to think, well, is it really a break for this child? You've put a child with auditory defensiveness, which means loud sounds bother him. Now you take this kid and you put him on a playground with 500 other children screaming and running around him. Is it truly a break for your child? You have to think about that. So what might you do? The teacher will say, well, the world isn't going to change for my child. True. But you have to take the child slowly through different steps. So maybe can the child eat a little earlier in the classroom and truly have a break? Or can we move his classroom away from all the other screaming children? Can we put him in a different spot on the playground? Can we give him a set of noise canceling headphones where he is protected? So those are the types of issues that we problem solve with, and the teachers and the staff. And we try to bring about an awareness of what it is that that particular child is facing in the school and how to get that kid successful at that point. So I've given you a little bit of an overview about how we use different techniques, like, and we apply things and we use them in different manners within the school system. To leave you with, I guess, a little thought is try to encourage your child based on their ability and their strengths. Encourage them to do tasks which are at their level. So whatever they can do independently, that's what we need to encourage and promote them to do further. I am really, really appreciative of Buddy Center and all their talks and the wonderful things that they are doing. I myself have learned a lot from them. I enjoy listening to all the parents and really appreciate this opportunity. So back to Karen, and thank you.
Thank you so much, Navaz. That was indeed so creative and so much learning from it. Thank you so much. And I hope the parents really benefit from this. It is really wonderful. There's so many things you touched upon, which is very, very practical. And yes, I could do with my kids a lot about it. So thank you once again. Speech therapists. Yes, we have Rachel back with us. Unfortunately, we do not have Pratiksha Gupta with us. She's unwell and she couldn't join us today. But we have Rachel here to tell us about speech therapy. When a child is unable or non-verbal to express themselves, it is very, very frustrating. It must be frustrating for the child, the parents, and everybody around. So what kind of channels of communication can we create or provide for this child? Speech therapy is necessary for improve overall communication. Speech delay can cause a lot of problems of listening, reading, writing. A speech therapist may focus on language drills and a group therapy to improve conversation skills. Yes, improvement in ability to understand, express feelings, thoughts, ideas, intelligible speech, so the child is understood better, not only by others, but they can understand themselves much better. Increasing ability to problem solve in an independent environment so that they can be left by themselves too with other people. And very importantly, yes, it also helps with swallowing of food, the function, our basic function. So, and lots of children have these issues. So tell us more about it, we have Rachel here. Rachel DeCruz is an audiologist and speech language pathologist from Pune. She has 3 years of experience working with both children and adults in a variety of settings. She works mostly with children and young adults with autism spectrum disorders, individuals with stuttering, and adults with neurogenic communication disorders. Her passion is to see her clients fully integrated into society. When not at work, she enjoys cycling, trekking, and music. Over to you, Rachel.
Hi, welcome everybody. I'm sorry my internet has been a bit erratic, but hopefully it will go over through this session. Thank you, Dr. Isha and Ms. Navaz for your input. That was really enlightening to hear about different therapies, especially the occupational therapy. I really enjoy working with occupational therapists and to work in a team. And just for you parents to know, we all support each other and each of us have different areas, but a lot of it overlaps. And yeah, so some of what I say you may have heard already, but just to let you know that speech therapy, we deal more with communication as a whole, and we support all the functions that are needed for communication, right? So that is thinking and organizing your thoughts, that is planning what to say, and language in itself. And also, after it is processed, after you've thought about what to say, how to say it. So the speech part of it, we deal with when speech is unclear, when there is stuttering, when there are difficulties with pronunciation. And then we also deal with swallowing problems. We also deal with voice problems. If you have a child with multiple needs, right? Suppose your child has cerebral palsy. It's very often that more than one of these areas will be affected. You may have difficulty with speaking. You may have the child may have difficulty with understanding the world and making sense of it, and learning language naturally. And he or she may also have a problem due to the spasticity to speak. Okay, so as speech therapists, we look at the child holistically and we see all the areas that are affected and we deal with them accordingly. So just to give you an idea of what a speech therapist does, we deal with individuals right from newborns to the geriatric population. There are a variety of problems that we focus on, that we can help right from a newborn child. We can see if they're developing normally. If they're not, we support them in their needs. Of course, if there is a child with multiple disabilities or multiple needs right from the beginning in the NICU, a preemie baby, we support them with their feeding, nutrition, the parent bonding, so as to help them develop good speech and language as they grow. Typically, by the time the child is 2 years and over, they should have started developing language. They should be expressing themselves and their needs. If not, we help them with that. Later on, if there are behavioral problems, if the child is showing atypical development and there's a query of whether they may be on the autism spectrum, we can support that and help them develop the skills which they are lacking. There's also a problem which is called apraxia, which is planning of speech sounds. Of course, it affects the whole body, but we deal with it when it affects the speech motor system. Sometimes the child understands everything and they know what to say. They may use signs, they may formulate their own signs to get their message across, but they cannot speak, they cannot get words out, and they cannot imitate you. All right, they don't just make the funny faces you're making. They have problems sucking juice from a straw. Sometimes this is seen with autism spectrum disorder, and it's a problem where the child cannot plan the specific motor task of speaking and the saying the sounds that they need in a particular word. So there are a variety of problems in different age groups that we typically see. As the child is growing up in the school age, there'll be reading and writing difficulties. Maybe we'll work alongside occupational therapists for all of these problems. There'll be reading and writing difficulties, or whether they have articulation problems. Sometimes when they have articulation problems, you may also see that they have these letter reversals, and they may have, of course, it doesn't have to be, side by side, but sometimes you may see these are just signs to know when your child needs a speech language pathologist. Also, something which is often ignored but should be seen to is a hoarse voice. If your child has hoarseness of voice, not using their breath very well, they're sometimes running out of breath, speaking too many words in a sentence, you may want to see a speech language pathologist just to prevent it from becoming a regular thing and just becoming worse later on. Yeah, so Ms. Karen said that most of your parents are parents of kids who are now growing up and your new concerns are, you have done all of this, you have done your speech therapy, and you've done the special schools, and you've done all of that, and your concerns are that, as a child is going into adulthood, how can we support them further, and what more to do, how to prepare them for the workplace, um, how to give them the tools they need to go into life, right? So just to help you with that aspect, and how we as therapists can support you better as parents, we basically want to look at what our kids' needs are. All right. Um, why do we talk? Why do we want to communicate? When we're small, we want to just get our basic needs met. We want to say more water, food. So as we grow and as our needs keep changing, we learn the language for it. We learn the way to get our point across. So as therapists, we want to help our kids eventually reach a point of autonomy. That is where they can function independently in society in all aspects. It's always good to have this vision for the future, even when your children are young, even when they are in school, to see how can I help them get to a place where they can be independent in life. And as therapists, we always try to focus our goals and focus the work we do accordingly. We want to make sure that their skill set is solid, and they're gonna be able to deal with whatever they have in life, right? So if you are familiar with this, basically once your basic needs are met, your food, water, housing, you want to feel safe, you want to feel respected. Later, you want to form friendships, you want to have intimate relationships, you want to feel that sense of belonging. And then later, you also want to leave your mark in the world, right? You want to express yourself, you want to have something of your own, you want to develop a skill. So that is self-actualization. You want to study further, you want to do all of those things, and eventually you want to be standing on your own. So how does that translate into the therapy plan of a speech language pathologist? And as we talk about it, it's in terms of communication functions. So when our kids are very young, we first want to help them learn how to request, say more water, I need this, enough, mama look, this is what I need, right? We want to get them to be able to have that level of language where they can speak about their needs and what they want. Later, you want them to be able to say, no, I don't like this, I don't feel safe, this is not nice. You want them to be able to even say, reject food, like say, I don't want this, it's not what I need right now. And then we need the next communication goal we need for the next phase of their development is for them to have conversation skills when they have to form friendships, how to go and approach someone, how to engage with someone, how to just even say hi and hello, right? Kids, this is a big problem. They really struggle to
Rachel's line has disconnected, I think. We'll give her a minute to get back if it's possible. The rains have come in, so I guess Rachel is having problems. Yes. We'll give her a minute to get back. Dr. Isha, Soni, there was something very intriguing that you talked about, is keeping the child continuously occupied during, getting them during leisure activities. It's very important because
Yes,
it not only keeps them occupied, but yes, it also gives the parents a break, the much needed break. So when the child is
exactly.
self-occupied and yeah, I can, keep themselves occupied. You don't have to continuously engage them. It does help even the parents uh, get get going with their personal activities. So very,
Yeah, I
very
mean, there are
important.
like so many things. Yeah, like,
Yeah.
the parents have their, some of them, I think Rachel is back. Yeah, so, some of them, they have their offices to go to, or
Not only even
they
at
have their
home,
chores to
even
finish. Yes,
exactly, exactly. And one more very important thing that you said, that if when there is no cure, then why the therapy? And I did read up somewhere that the therapy is only 50% effective most times. So why so much effort? I mean, we take the child, we are spending so much money. It's not only, just the time and money, it is, taking the child, bringing the child, spending time over there. And then sometimes they say only
right.
50% effectiveness. What is that? And for how long are we going to do it? So yeah, it makes a difference to parents. I mean, because it's a struggle all the time. Yes, Rachel, you're back.
Right.
Would would you like to continue?
Yes, I'm so sorry. Thank
No,
you
no, it's
for,
understandable. Please go ahead.
okay, let me just get my, yeah. All right. So, yeah, while I was already sharing this, you may have realized what's the next step your child needs at this point of their lives. You may have realized, okay, this is what we need to work on now. This is the areas which already need more support. And so that's where a speech therapist and an occupational therapist and psychologist and the whole team will come into play. And as y'all was saying, yes, it is an expensive affair. Why should we spend the money? But it is like, it will pay off. It will be, a fruitful event to see your child standing up on their own. I just wanted to share with you a story of a cafe in Bombay. Some of you may have heard it. It's called Cafe Arpan. They have hired 13, I think 13 or 14 individuals with disabilities. And they successfully run a cafe all on their own with, I think, one assistant in the kitchen. And just to let you know, this is possible. There is a way to do this. I know everyone has different needs and different set levels of functioning, and but there are places open to making space for our kids. There are, place in society for each one. And I think until so either it's already there, or we make the space for it and we advocate for this. So an occupational therapist will definitely help you further into, seeing the skill set your kids have and where they can be placed and what kind of job will be best for them, and how to achieve those goals on the physical aspects, how to make sure they have the physical abilities to do all of these things, the learning of, I mean, of course, the occupational therapist can talk more of that. But as speech therapists, we will also support this, right? So even if your child has limited verbal skills at this point, I just wanted to talk about, um, I think Karen wanted me to talk about when a child isn't verbal or has limited conversational skills. I wanted to talk to you about this thing called augmentative and alternative communication, or AAC. All right. So there are different systems in place. You may have heard of sign language, and a lot of people use PECS, which is picture exchange communication. Um, these are all ways that we use pictures, we use signs to support the communication and the language that the child already has. Always remember that your child has things they want to say. We just have to figure out a way that they can say it and a way that they can express themselves. They always want they always have a way to communicate. We just have to fine tune our ears, our eyes to see it and to understand them better. And to then take that system and make it to bring it into a more formal system where the rest of the world can understand. So that in essence is AAC. All right. You may have heard of, can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead, Rachel.
Yeah. You may have heard of Avaz app, or there's an app called Jello, which is brought out by the, I think the UN and the IIT in Bombay are working on it. So there are different systems which are already in place. There are different apps that you can download. This is just a brief about it. Okay, and you will have to work with a speech therapist to find out what your child is ready for at this point and where we can challenge them further. I personally love to use low-tech devices in the beginning to get a child used to it, which is basically picture boards such as this, right? Like, please put money in wallet. So they just have to point to the thing that to the sentence. Even if they are not at a sentence level of language, they just say money wallet or in purse or money purse, or give card. So just this communication board is something that older child would use, a teenager and adult, just to like broaden our perspectives of how we can use even limited verbal communication, even limited communication for our kids in the real world, in society, and how we can help them be integrated in the small things while they're shopping, while they can go out on their own with a board like this and point to it. And I'm certain that it will, people are quite accommodative and they will support them back. Another app is that you point the same words and it says it back to you. So it sounds like voice, and it's made the sentence like, I want juice, I want juice. If the child has limited mobility, there are these things which are eyes gaze devices where it just tracks the eye gaze. So the child just has to look at what they want to point to and it tracks it up on the top over here. There are text to speech devices. If your child is literate, knows how to read, it can text it out and press play and the sentence is read out. Even these can be quite expensive, but there are cheaper ways to do it. And if you just have a communication board to start off, which is just printing out a sheet, laminating it, and getting them to point, such as this. I want information, I want help. If they are literate, they can use something like this without pictures and just point to the tile they need to. All right, so there are ways that we can support your teenagers, your adults, no matter what stage they are in life. It's never too late. It's never it doesn't have to be an expensive affair. We can find a way that supports you as a family right where you are in life, and find ways to go that step further. Okay, this is the next step you want your child to go to. Your child wants to go to. Sometimes many kids, especially like kids with Down syndrome and things, they want to work, they want to feel part of society. They see their other friends doing things, other peers, cousins. They want to also experience something like that. There are some organizations, I just wanted to tell you, which are finding ways for kids to be integrated in society. One of my kids, he's a boy with Down syndrome. He's now at a job in Bangalore, and then there are some stories of people who have been integrated. I know an occupational therapist in Bombay who has been working to integrate kids with disabilities into the hotel industry. So even if they have limited functioning, things like packing the soaps and hospitality. There are many, I've heard that I think the Treehouse Hotel Group, Orchid Hotel Group, they want to hire people with disabilities. So there are many ways that you can find spaces for your children to be when they are ready, of course. And also to know that even no matter how young they are, to prepare them for all the skills they will need to be independent and to live and enjoy life as the rest of us do in not only work. I know I talked only about working, but there are other things, right? We want them to be able to live on their own. We want them to be safe and secure. We want them to be able to make choices of how they live and where they live and what they eat and how to manage their health issues and how to take control over that. We want them to be able to be participate in society. We want them to be able to have some peer groups and to have some social, spiritual engagement. So I used to do activities, a small group. I had 3 boys that were all adolescents and young adults, and we would do some simple things like play activities together and add like social skills to it, just so that they build friendships with each other. We would play board games, which would again work on other skills like their thinking and organization and planning. And so there are different creative ways where we can work together and help your child be a part of society. I know that it's often a very tiring, I understand what it is like. It's very tiring to keep going and to keep being hopeful for your child's future, but they can enjoy and you can enjoy with them, and we can find spaces for them to be. So thank you.
Thank you, Rachel, for all your valuable inputs. This evening has been very informative and very overwhelming with so much information coming for all of us. We as parents have to see what works best for our children and under the current circumstances and what helps our kids the best. So, yes, thank you all so much for being here with us this evening. And Navaz, for you be joining us early in the morning. And yes, therapies are the need of the hour. Thank you all so much. Have a nice evening.
Thank you. Happy New Year,
Our
everyone.
pleasure. Thank you. Happy New
Bye.
Year. Bye-bye. Bye.